All right, welcome back to 3T Behind the Lens. My name is Jeremy Quintanilla, the co-founder and CFO of 3T Warrior Academy, and I am hoping that you watched our previous video. If you haven't, there should be a link somewhere or something somewhere Brenda will put in at some point in time where you could click it or something. Make sure that you watch that one because it's going to talk about CJV's equity sale, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about how we actually valued the company to that $15 million. So, to get started, I'm going to talk about a buzzword that you might be hearing all over the internet, and that is LBO. What does that mean? That means leveraged buyout. Okay, and that is when someone goes and essentially buys a business, okay, and they do it in the form of debt or equity, and then they try to make that business profitable and flip it. So, what does debt and equity mean? Well, debt is something most consumers are probably familiar with. It's when you go and get a loan for something. So, businesses will go and get a loan, and then they will use that money to maybe go and buy another business and then kind of make it profitable and then turn it around, sell it, hopefully selling it for more than what they bought it for. The other way that they can get some of that money is through this equity piece, which is when they find another investor that doesn't want to go in on debt. They actually want to own the business so that they own the future cash flows of that business, and they own some of it when they actually sell the business. Kind of like what we did when we sold some of CJV's equity for 3T Warrior Academy. Now, that being said, the goal of this is to make the company profitable is when you do an LBO. And it's a very big concept in the online marketing space right now. You can buy lots of different courses to learn how to do it. And then you go and buy a company, you flip it, and you sell it. Now, in the online marketing space, what they traditionally do is they utilize this thing called a multiplier. And they'll usually use a multiplier of 1.5. So what that means is you take the EBITDA, which I'll explain what that is in a minute. You take that, you times it by 1.5, and that gives you the amount that you're going to sell the business for. So in this case, let's say that EBITDA or EBITDA was $100,000. You times that by 1.5, and then that gives you $150,000. So you would sell that business, or the online marketing space guy who's trying to do these LBOs will tell you after he looks at your financials that he'll buy the business for $150,000. Now, this can work. Is this the best way to value a company? I personally don't think so, and then we didn't do that when we valued CJV. How we did the CJV equity sell for some of the 3T Warrior Academy is we did something called net present value. But before I go into that, let me explain what EBITDA means. So EBITDA is a cool way to say earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And so this number is found on the P&L sheet or the income statement. And essentially, it's like your net income before you expense out the interest expense, the taxes expense, the depreciation expense, and the amortization expense. And the reason why you put these back in is because a lot of the times cash didn't move when you did these. These are just kind of like, okay, well, my car depreciated. It's now, I can expense like, I don't know, $5,000 from my car, but I didn't actually pay out $5,000. So these are like non-cash things that you want to add back in to get that. And so when you would do that, like on here with this EBITDA, in this example, that EBITDA, the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization was $100,000. So the way that you're taught in business school to value projects is by something called net present value. And a lot of the times you usually do that when you're also valuing a company. And so net present value is essentially this formula kind of. NPV equals a discounted cash flow 1, discounted cash flow 2, discounted cash flow 3, and so on, plus the terminal value. And the terminal value is a fancy formula and way to find out if we sold the business, what would that business have generated moving forward into the future forever gaining money, or what could we have made with the business if we didn't sell it and we just let it make money moving forward. Now, I'm not going to go super into how you come up with this, but for the purposes of our argument, we have in year 1, the discounted cash flow was $25,000. In year 2, the discounted cash flow was $25,000. And in year 3, the discounted cash flow is $30,000. And this is another way to say EBITDA. But if you're curious about what it means for like discounted cash flow, that means in year 2, if what we made in year 2 for EBITDA would have been worth $25,000 $100,000 in year one. If you're more interested in that, I would recommend that you go just type in net present value calculation or discounted cash flows, and they can kind of explain it to you online and you can read more about it. But based off of our formula, if we did 25,000, 25,000, and 30,000, we would also then, if that was all the years that we wanted to project, right, we wouldn't add anything else. But then we would add in this terminal value. So let's say at the end of year 3, in year 4, we sold it for $100,000. We look at the discounted cash value of the terminal value. We decided it is $100,000. We had $100,000, $30,000, $25,000, and $25,000. We get $170,000, and we would sell this business for $170,000. If we did it from the multiplier version, like the LBO online marketing space kind of talks about, we would have just taken $25,000. We would have times it by 1.5, and they would have bought it for $37,500. But it doesn't take into consideration all of these other cash flows and the selling of the business that new person would get. So when we relook at this, the net present value, the business is worth $170,000, which is here. This is the value that we did at 3T Warrior Academy, and we valued this business at for 3T Fitness at $15 million roughly. And that's based off of what we're going to make this year, next year, 8 years out, plus a terminal value. So one of the reasons why this is important is so that you're not going to be taken advantage of. And it's really important for entrepreneurs to know this so that they can see how kind of businesses work, how LBOs work, how they can value their business. And I'm not saying the online marketing one is bad or not bad. I'm just saying there's different ways to value these, and depending on the method that you use, you will get, sometimes, in this case, a significant type of valuation. So remember, be thankful, grateful, and kind, which is what I always say. Warriors rise, and we will talk with you guys next time. Bye.